Hey, everybody, welcome to the Spinner Eye. I'm here with my boys, PD and Kyle. What's up, guys?
What's going on?
Ready to rock.
Hey, today we're talking about Crisis. You know, we're bringing it back up. Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths. We got a lot of responses here, so we have a lot to say, especially Kyle. So, PD, what's your take?
Well, we talked about that. Oh, we got the comic. Finally got an animation on Crisis, even though they're centered around the Justice League and not against the ragtag group that was initially brought in the Crisis book. I think this is something everyone wants to check out. I mean, I don't know how Batman got a big spot in this story because he has some moments in there, but this is the Golden Age Superman. He takes kind of the lead, even though Superman's in the middle parts. He's a big player in most of it, but Batman's really not a big part of it. So I want to see what portion of what character he kind of plays, because like the lead characters are almost was a Psycho Pirate and some of those other characters like Pariah and obviously the Monitor and Nighttime Monitor. I wonder if the Monitor is going to make it in. I think he's going to make it in here. But they have some of the other characters in here too. So they got a bunch of other characters too. But that we didn't actually, I don't think we saw. Mary Marvel was it. The Marvel family was in there. So, well, I'm excited. What do you guys think? Cal, it's on you.
For this animation?
Well, anything. Go Crisis at first, or you want to talk animation first? Talk animation.
Well, it's going to be in 3 parts, so they might actually be taking this seriously, or I don't know. It's this new DC animation that they are doing right over here. I didn't even watch War World because I didn't hear anything good about it, and I was looking forward to that. But then they decided it was going to be broken up in 3 different stories involving Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. When War World is really a Superman story, so I when they do type of stuff, when they do that type of stuff, it makes me wonder if they understand what this story is supposed to be about because it's not an original story. It's based, on things from the comics. And Crisis on Infinite Earths is arguably the biggest DC comic story ever made. It resets their entire universe. It decimates their universe, as well. And it's only been executed once, and that was in live action. That was received very well. You would think in animation, if they're going for 3 parts, they're really, really trying to dig in and reward viewers with the dividends of a great story. But it depends on where their focus is at. Some of the stuff that I've seen with the trailer, makes me a little cautious, but I want to see it. I mean, like for me, one of the problems that I'm looking at is because they're so tuned to their own universe that they're creating that they're losing out on some of the stuff that only works if you follow the template of Crisis. If you want to have 2 Supermen in there, okay, you can do that. But having the Golden Age Superman, okay, and the not necessarily. Well, let me see the Earth One and the Earth Two Superman. One older, one younger. One from the one from the 1938 period where Superman first debuted, and the other one who would be more of a Silver Age, debut, if you will. That was good because they're coming from 2 totally different perspectives. At the end of the day, they're fighting for different things. The Golden Age Superman, he's married. He's been married to Lois for a long period of time. He's the editor. He's the publisher now on the Daily Star. And Superman of Earth One, none of those things. He's still very much in the throes of an early career in comparison to the Golden Age or Earth Two Superman. When I look here and it just looks like okay, we got 2 Supermen. One's just different because his belt is yellow or the other one is red. And like you're not getting it. Okay, you're not getting the whole reason why this was done and the richness of the DC tapestry. You're just going to throw this on people, and people coming into it within Crisis knew these worlds. They understood that when you saw these 2 Supermen, who they were, what they meant, what was established by them. So when I see that type of stuff, it looks like they want to take a shortcut to just deliver on some stuff that has to be there, and without the development that would be necessary. But I still want to see it. I'm looking forward to seeing how it's executed in that first part.
Mars.
They're going to do a good job. I mean, I can't see why it won't happen. I mean, one of the key things we have to understand, this is basically the conclusion. I think they're calling it the Tomorrowverse. What was happening before starting off with the films with Superman, Man of Tomorrow, the animated film, Justice Society films, because now going after this, like I said before, we're going basically into the gunverse. I don't know if that's what they want to call it, but it's going to be the gunverse. This is going to be the animated shows are going to be much more closely aligned to what the movies and TV shows that Gunn is going to be releasing. So we're going to see a lot of things that happen here, and hopefully it's not going to be a negative thing. I don't know if it's going to also seep into the comics, but I think it's going to be a much united view, wholesome view of DC, and this could be a positive, a net positive for what's going on, versus what we've seen in the past where DC has been extremely, disjointed and stuff. And again,
No,
if you thought of Crisis, I think I complain about there being so many versions of Crisis, particularly in the comic books and stuff like that. But any thought of Crisis is you have to also look at the success of the CW series, right? You know, they were able to finally do something that they have not been able to do in the movies or even in live action. They did it, and it was popular when they came out. Of course, the joining up of the heroes and the Arrowverse situation. So here we're hoping now with the animation and with all those movies, we're hoping that it will finally come to this conclusion. I'm only sorry they never did it with Bruce Timm, right? Bruce Timm is not going to be part of this. I think it's another crew of writers and animators that are basically
mhm.
most of the stuff.
So the
I don't
small
think he could.
verse, you
I don't
mean
think he could have
TV?
done it.
Whoa,
I
wait,
don't,
Before we get to, I just want, is it tomorrow verse? You mean the TV and the other stuff? All the TV and animation, or just animation?
it's the name given to the American media franchise. Shit is what they say in Wikipedia, and shared universe by DC Entertainment and Warner Brothers Animation, and based on the characters appearing in DC Comics, right? So this is what they've been doing with the DC animated universe for since Superman Man of Tomorrow in 2020. I
Okay.
guess they wanted to get it more, connected, but of course they had another change. With DC, they're constantly changing strategy, so that's what happened. So you have Man of Tomorrow, Justice Society, The Long Halloween, Green Lantern, Beware of My Power, Legion,
Okay.
superheroes. Of course, they had. They're saying this is actually a direct um, follow up of War World, right? Which so it's pretty interesting that they already had. It seems that they've had a plan building up story. The same thing we've talked about many times.
Okay.
Let's build up the team, the individuals, and then building up the team before you have. Hey, let's have a Justice League movie right off the bat, right?
So now we got to get to. Sorry for interrupting. Cal, you don't think Bruce Tim could have done this?
Let's not go into that. Let's not go into that. Let's not bring it up.
no, he. I don't think he. I don't think he could have. It was very clear where Bruce Timm excelled in terms of characters. He would have excelled with the characters like Blue Beetle. The fringe characters. He could have really played around with them. But the characters that he worked well with were not the characters who ended up anchoring the story like past issue 6. So I don't see. I don't. I mean, there's no Batman. There's no Batman, moment or anything of that nature coming later. He might have done a good thing with the Flash because he's gonna die anyway, so he could, definitely storyboard that. But the bigger moments were with the larger characters, primarily Superman, and he has shown on more than one occasion that that was just not a character that he was able to render very well in terms of what he did in the animation. The best Superman moments were stuff that he didn't do.
I think you're right. And I'm not saying you're right. Bruce Timm is releasing his own set of movies, right? I don't think that has changed. I think didn't he come out with the Cape Crusader recently, right?
Well, they're trying to figure out where they're going to put it.
Right. So Batman Cape Crusader, you know,
Yep. Once again, Batman. Hey, issue 7 is pre. I mean, that's a really big issue. Okay, the death of Supergirl Kara Zor-El, and I can't see him doing it. I can't see him doing it. He would take the chump road for all the stronger characters, and this was where I mean that right there. This was all of your heavy hitters at the end of the day, and you have to make it to the point where these guys are still potent, and they're up against something where we really need all of them, and we're but it's still not necessarily enough. And he would probably just execute it to the point that they just get slapped around for the whole thing, and that would be it. He's good at that. He's good at taking the powerful character, a la Superman, and just having him slapped around for a whole bit, but not showing any genuine heroism on the character or showing that character, like cranking it up a notch at the end of the day. So, I just don't see him rendering a satisfying death to Kara Zor-El. The Flash isn't as indestructible, so he probably would have done okay with that. The whole thing with the whole thing with the Spectre coming in, and then those last two issues, so which without a doubt are crucial are crucial to Crisis. That fight against Superman and the Anti Monitor. No, I mean even when he had his biggest fight of like the two heaviest hitters, I suppose, in his universe, which would have been Superman Unleashed, if you will, and Darkseid. What happens? He chumps out. He chumps out and gives Lex Luthor the win. So I just, I don't have it. I just don't have the faith in him that he would be able to execute it well, based on what he showed in his own when he had a full handle on the character.
I mean, good for you. Then he's not doing it. But I think that I
Yes,
think undercutting
good
him.
for us.
The success that Bruce Timm has had, and of course taking some of the top stories in the DC universe. I mean, we're talking about the Killing Joke. We're talking about Soul of the Dragon. We're talking about Justice League. We're talking about
But those,
Batman
but
by Gaslight. So, and don't even forget the
the
series.
Killing Joke, the Killing Joke got mixed reviews.
Superman the animated series. He took to new heights.
The Killing Joke got mixed reviews. He went over there and had Barbara Gordon and Bruce Wayne having sex. It got mixed reviews. Nobody needed that. Soul of the Dragon. Richard Dragon got made Chinese, and he's not Chinese.
Superman the animated. All these guys make these type of choices. Are they?
Well,
not all the time.
I would only say I mean the having Superman get knocked out in was it issue 7 and Kara dying heroically. I think that could be that can be definitely pulled. I mean, the hard part is that there's the trimming and pruning, and you also have a story that kind of with a 12-part story kind of loses its way up until Kara dies. So I think they had her as a fun character in the what's the name. So I think he could handle that. The hard part I think is to me is more the series because it starts one way, it changes up, it becomes all the characters. Now George Perez did such a great job of having all these characters interact, so everyone felt like they were having these moments. So it kind of kept the piece of the puzzle together, but then the story was more around the Anti-Monitor. So that's the thing of having him and the Psycho Man, and I haven't seen any of that yet. So that's what the later part of the series, where the Monitor was the key in the first one, then the Anti-Monitor, even though he's the villain, is that. So it's kind of you could try to do, and this is going back just in what could happen because I'm not sure how this is going to play out. But it's I think having Perez on it is what really held the pie together. I think it was kind of rough and around the edges, and it was kind of especially when you got to the 10 and 11. But then when you say, okay, this is the end. Okay, we got to the end, and they kind of had a decent end last series. It didn't feel like the same way Secret Wars was, where it was kind of all in Doctor Doom's head. So they kind of solved it, we got rid of it, and then we had some nice moments. We haven't seen any of those characters yet, and they haven't, I guess, been in the Tomorrow verse, so we won't have those moments. So that's kind of the sad part. But twofold to say, depending, possibly, but it is a Herculean task to do Crisis. So I give them the same amount of chance that any of these animators could, but it's a tough thing to do. So I hear Cal's thoughts. I believe in Bruce Timm. It's just a Herculean task to kind of try to do what Perez and Marv Wolfman did to get it done and keep it feeling like it was together, even though it was like Perez talked about it and said there was a struggle where they kind of said, all right, can you just really co-plot it now? It's not just Mars baby. Like you're credited as a co-plotter. Like, please keep this thing in order. It's really like we got who is it? Harbinger, she says, "I'm going to kill you at the end of 3," and then when he kills him is at the end of issue 4, and they're like, "All right, you got to go in there. You got to do a little more. Like, you don't take it away, but kind of keep the puzzle together." So, um, Crisis itself, the original. Your thoughts, guys? Got it right here. This monster thing.
Which one is that? The Absolute?
Yeah.
Like I
It
said,
took a while before I
probably
got it too.
is arguably. Oh, you waited? Oh,
I did,
I've
but I
got
didn't have any money.
uh, I've got the Absolute Edition, and I have an error copy that was signed by George Perez. I wanted to get both of them, but that was just like a yeah. I think we were all at that show. Were we? You
No, I
got
don't
yeah.
think I was there. I wasn't there
It was
for it.
like it was like the New Jersey Expo, and
Yeah,
George Perez was doing this was
heard of
his last bit of signing. He was there with Jim Starlin and I think Joe Rubenstein. So I was able to get some stuff signed by George Perez while I was out there, which I'm very very happy that I was able to get done at the time. But no, I mean this is I mean arguably I mean for me this is the most important story, maybe with the exception of like Action Comics 1, but it's the most important story in the DC universe. It totally changes the DC universe. It's really big, hadn't been attempted before, and then for all the drags on the story, it still delivers. This is something that in terms of a shared universe by writers, this isn't a universe that's you know been crafted by just one particular person or one particular group that's been shepherding along, because it's one of the longest stories in history in terms of being shared, and then they had to go and fracture and restart that history over, and they were able to do it. Now, of course, anybody who's reading After Crisis, will say, "Oh, but this is out of whack. This is out of whack." I mean, heck, we have a Crisis ending, and you got the new Superman John Byrne stuff coming out, and they still got the current Superman books still coming out at the same time. So you got guys like, what, what exactly is going on? But it's almost like the art, life reflected the art, where even in real world time, the crisis affects it. Where it's like, okay, it's going to take some time to get this all back together. And then for some characters, it just never got back together. And then you had to what followed that? 0 Hour.
Yep, 0 hour. Yeah,
You had 0 Hour. We're like, okay, let's see if we can fix some stuff here. And then you have another thing. Then you have Infinite Crisis, and all stemming out of that because of the success of that series right there. So, just a very important. It's a significant story for DC Comics. If it had flubbed, we probably would not have had the next 20 or 30 years that we got out of DC Comics in terms of a whole bunch of stuff that we got to see. And I think for DC it was also a very important story because they had regulated themselves into we're number two, not really competing with any of their competition, which was really only Marvel. But between Crisis, Watchmen, and Dark Knight Returns, they had some really good stuff to punch their way up. So yeah, anytime that we want, we can show you how it's done. The trouble is they usually don't really want to do it too often. They don't really want to do it too often. But just a incredibly important story for DC Comics, an incredibly important story for comics altogether in terms of comic history, and something that if you haven't read, you should definitely take the time to read it.
was it the only? Was it the? Well, there was stuff that they had planned, obviously, to get rid of, which they followed through with the house cleaning. But the bigger casualty was, and I don't know if I was reading the book at the time, was All Star Squadron, where you can read the memos. Roy Thomas is helping as much as he can. Here, use whichever character. Just let me know where it's at. Wait a second, I can't do this book anymore. Like, no, we're streamlining. It was a nutty way that they were trying to streamline it, and you could see it through there. their who's who, how they were kind of putting it in there, so you could kind of look at it and say, this is the only thing here. But like you can see in the memos in there that Roy Thomas was kind of like, all for it, but not knowing that this was going to be his, this was going to be the swan song. Even though he had Infinity Inc., he hadn't planned on losing All Star Squadron. And there's a couple of things that were on the shelf that was shelved a long time ago, which was Superboy and Supergirl, which are like, once we figure, we're going to put in a new book. Oh, wait a second, we got this crisis. We're going to hold it off till after this crisis thing. Oh, no, we're not doing, definitely not the Supergirl and Superboy book anymore. So it's one of those things where DC, they were keeping stuff in, office wise, you should know all that stuff that, hey, the writing's on the wall. He said the Wonder Woman people already know what's happening in their title, and they're fine with it. We do got Kurt Busiek doing something, but that's only a miniseries. Some of you other guys, y'all in trouble. So just what do they say when they're in regular? Like he said, it's cold out there for you guys. So buckle up. It's gonna be, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, ultimately, DC needed a kind of a shakeup just to let the get the sales up. They did have a couple of high selling titles, but like some of their key stuff wasn't really doing as well as say the Titans and the Legion. And they had Crisis, so they had a book that was kind of critically acclaimed and very successful. So it's done by the two top team. When Perez wasn't even supposed to be on it, he was supposed to be doing special projects, and then he's in the office when they're talking about Crisis, and he was like, he said, "Why can't I do it?" He said, "Well, we thought you're gonna you're gonna write a title." It's like, no, I want to do all of them. I want all the characters. So we lucked out.
Yeah, we did. Let's not forget that, for better or for worse, this showed the way for the comic book companies that I'm being careful. The comic book companies that, hey, let's do these type of series. Right? These type of series where we can do these limited issues. And now look at what we have now with gangs of gang war, where you have 40 series that are connected, 40 issues that are connected, or 30 issues that are connected. Powers of X.
Why would you do that to me? You stabbed me right in the heart. I was trying to say as much positive as I could, and then you went to that.
I had to say
This and Secret War say we could do this over and over and over and over.
I went to Midtown to get the latest crossover series.
The Spider-Man Gang War, that's what you're talking about?
And all of a sudden, I saw the list of all the comics you have to buy. Because there's not individual, there's no like Gang War comic in and of itself. There's just, you have to buy Spider-Man, you have to buy Spider-Woman, you have to buy Luke Cage. And I'm like, what has Crisis wrought on us? That's what I said, So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw some cold water on this, but Cal can clearly agree with me on this.
Not everybody is George Perez. They can't manage all those characters and have them interacting and acting, looking like they're in the scene and not just a Where's Waldo page. It's a hard thing to do. And the closest we got is Infinity War. I think that, but they had everyone separate. They did a Gardner Fox story where like the Gardner Fox Justice League story. Here's these three guys, and here's these three guys, and here's these three guys, and we have the villain running around. So it was kind of like a DC kind of thing, because they used to do that where they split the characters up, and we still kind of the movie kind of held together. So that's the closest in my mind. You guys might have something that is has more characters and better. I can't think of it outside of as far as live action or animated.
And I got to give what Cal and I think you guys said previously about these. It's you look at these things in terms of the reboots that they did, right? And it didn't hold for some of these characters, right? I think wasn't Man of Steel like the number one comic that they rebooted during that time period?
Yeah. Well, for a while, yeah, that was like
how long did that hold? What did you say, Cal? How long did that hold? The changes. How long was the changes that happened?
For which character?
For the Man of Steel comic book.
Oh, for the Man of Steel?
Yeah, Because then wasn't
I
that
mean,
the comic book of
some of
the
the some of the changes held for a long time. I
mm,
mean, a long time. It wouldn't be till like around like maybe 2000, 2006, when a lot of that. I mean, you had to literally, a lot of the guys who were writing the book had to leave, and the editorial had to change. And it was just time to expand a bit. But
2006 or 1996?
2006, because one of the things I was just reading over. Did you ever read this? This is Amazing Heroes issue. Got Superman on the cover. John Byrne drew him, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like John Byrne Superman, and they do an article, and they tell you what they wanted to do. They wanted to make Superman less powerful, and they wanted to make him more human. As you know, as ironic as that might seem, but that's what they wanted to go with. That's where they wanted to go with it. And the less powerful thing, that was always going to be a hard thing to keep him in the pocket. By the time you get to the Doomsday fight, that effectively ends the changes that Byrne made. Those effectively, once he fights Doomsday, dies, comes back, those are effectively gone. Now he's in space. He can navigate space. He just needs like a star chart to remember. Those type of things are gone at the end of the day, and then they'll more of that will slip away as time goes by. But that whole make him more human thing, that's the thing that lasted a very, very long time. We're talking, uh, if 86 is the year, you're talking maybe 2006 before they finally like let loose on that. Where okay, he doesn't need to hold his breath. He actually he's actually has an interest in Krypton, those type of things. So some of the changes, some of the changes depend. A few years here, there, that type of stuff, especially in terms of the powers. But that whole thing, well, no, we want him to be just a guy from Kansas. That lasted a very long time. That lasted a very. They held on to that with dear life.
oh, that's pretty interesting. I mean, so I guess you're saying basically that when they had because they did the Dark Crisis, and then after that they did what Final Crisis, and which some people say is the trilogy of the entire Crisis storyline. But then 2006 wasn't that the Final Crisis storyline when they had
Yeah,
that?
that'll be Final Crisis. Then you get like 1 year later, and to a large extent, Superman's like I hate to say fully because they still like wanted to hold back a bit, but he's pretty much fully unshackled. He's pretty much fully unshackled at that point. And then you had I mean, well, that was Superman. You had other characters. I don't know. Wonder Woman I thought fared very well in terms of development on the Perez and then Jimenez. And I thought the storytelling was solid, but they never really had a direction for her. They've never really had a direction for her, to be quite honest. Batman, you know, Batman, Batman got progressively stronger, but not so much because of the comics. Because the comics did improve, but you had the animated series, so you had a whole team of kids who grew up watching that animated series that as they got older got into the comic, and it was just like a perfect pipeline at the end of the day. Because the whole idea is that most kids can watch a cartoon before they can read. So they had grown up on this stuff, and then they went into the comics and were, of course, the comics were hitting their stride, and these guys came right in. So it was just like it was a perfect synergy at the end of the day. Then you had characters like Hawkman who floundered for a very long time. We almost characters that we almost didn't see again. Like I can't. You would have characters like Adam Strange who good grief if you could find him half the time, but it was over that type of period. Definitely some characters fared better than others, and suffice to say, if you were a more popular character, you probably were going to fare a little. Well, no, I can't even say that because some of the characters that were more popular, they just kept being reinvented because they didn't have a place any longer in that reconstituted DC universe.
Got it. Yeah. I don't know what to say. That's an uplifting or depressing thought. So but it's just a story. I mean, every time they come back with stuff and changing, and one of the impacts of Crisis is the whole multiverse, right? I mean, which already existed in DC, and of course, Marvel looks this way. And we're in the middle of the whole phase of the multiverse in the Marvel universe, and
It's
there's
not going well for the Marvel multiverse.
there's no
Not
way
going well at all.
there's no way you can say Crisis did not impact it, right? I mean, we all know that right now. Crisis was definitely. I mean, as we've seen as time has gone on, they've had a whole bunch of different worlds that they've expanded on. Of course, they also have the whole Spider Verse in and of itself.
But oh wait, you're going too far. DC had Crisis, right? Where the Justice Society would meet the Justice League. You had the early stories with the Flash and the Green Lanterns meeting, and those are like great stories. And then they had, was it Five Times Crisis, which I read off the racks, where you had the All Star Squadron, the Justice Society, and the Justice League meet up for like six to eight to 9 issues, something like that. Probably I think it was more six, but it's like those things were the ones I was reading. And then Crisis was in line with that, right? But it wasn't killing you. You weren't sitting around there, and everyone has turned it into how, because it didn't originally come from what's that thing? It didn't originally come from Supreme. It came from Alan Moore's Captain Britain, where all of the characters run into each other, right? That's what we need to stop. We can't everything be like Supreme, where you run into everything. And that's what they kind of did with Zero Hour, which was fun because I hadn't really seen it. It didn't happen. It happened before Supreme. So they had multiple versions of the same character coming up in the Zero Hour. So you had the Neil Adams Batman next to the the Dick Sprang Batman. So you did a little of that. That was like one story. So I found something to like in the Zero Hour. Now Marvel is doing Zero Hour where you see everything. They're going too far. Crisis that they did on TV, fine. They figured out a story. Marvel is just going totally nuts with the multiverse. They can't stop.
But with DC, there was a purpose to the multiverse. They had a purpose to the multiverse. They also had a professional purpose to the multiverse. Marvel's never had. To be frank, Marvel never really had a never really had a multiverse. You had the they never really had a multiverse to be. I mean, you had the like, oh, we went to this dimension or something of that nature. But no, DC has the Earth 1, the Earth 2. Marvel was the main universe, and every once in a while you might see something in terms of a multiverse, but nothing really established.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the part that makes for a better story, the way you have something that has that dynamic. We're getting together to fight with character. I don't know if they've done an animation. We haven't seen Degaton yet, which is one of the favorite of DC's that I've seen. He's like like Red Skull without the mask, but he always seemed like he was really really intense. So you had those things, but then even if I go to Captain Britain that with Alan Moore and Alan Davis, they had Roma, who's kind of running this multiverse of Captain Britain's, and they're like, here it was kind of like Green Lantern, but it was a multiverse version of Green Lantern. That's what Moore was doing. But now there's just like, I guess Spider-Man into Spider-Verse is fun. It was fun stuff and running into that, and they had like the police force, like what I said for Captain Britain. But now going where Marvel said we're gonna do it with our live action, they just won't stop. We have to run into 3 of each other, and I always go to Picard because that's where I first kind of saw it, even though I said it was around more. But Picard would run into Picard, and Janeway would run into Janeway, and they'd have some banter between themselves, and I'm just like, this could be with some other character. So I'm agreeing, and at the same time, Marvel, just get back to storytelling. Just get back to.
I think we're going off track.
You go here, and you go to the glasses, and you go to the I gotta do this. That's when I say, what the hell is going on? That's messing with you. I just wanted to be bothered, but yeah, I'm sorry for doing it again.
Yeah, I don't know. But all right, hey, let's close this up.
Wasn't Perdigated on Legends of Tomorrow?
What did you say?
No, Petey said they hadn't done Degaton, but wasn't Perdigated on Legends of Tomorrow?
Was he on with Per Degaton in Legend of Tomorrow? Please say yes.
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, I got to check that out. All right, here we go. I got some viewing to do.
I always felt he was just like I felt he was like a more human looking version of Darkseid. I was like for Darkseid, and then they would, which is Perez pretty much for. So I was like, I always thought he was just a. For me, he was a thinly veiled analog. I don't think anybody else ever got it. If that was.
He's my guy. Well, that's like kind of first kind of the All-Star Squadron, one of the books I was checking out, like the early books, which was All-Star Squadron. When they did it cross with Justice League, I got some of those Justice League. It was like what Superboy, Legion, and then Marvel, of course, X-Men, Spider-Man for a short period, Spider-Man Super Stories, Super Friends, and maybe a couple Batmans. So was there anything else? I think there was only one Fantastic Four, but I liked the cartoon. I wish they would be better like the cartoon. So I bought the reprints of the Kirby stuff. And Marvel Tales. That was like my favorite book. Marvel Tales. Even though I stopped reading the regular Spider-Man, I kept reading Marvel Tales. So that's my short thing of the comic books I used to get. There probably was a few more, but what was it? Marvel Spotlight, Captain Universe. Yeah, that too.
All right, gents, I think we have definitely gone off vast Marvel and all over there. But hey,
you had to bring up the multiverse of Marvel.
I just wanted to just make a small collection, man. Jeez. But hey,
all right,
any questions before we continue? Before we stop?
I'm good.
Okay, so Spinner Rock
Out.